Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for your advanced look at the Spider-Man Clone Saga Omnibus Volume 2. This is the new printing from Marvel Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. Now, before going any further, I do want to thank David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advance copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on March 12th or 13th, depending on where you get your books. And speaking of direct market, book market, what we're looking at here is the direct market only variant, and this is the one that's supplied by Mark Bagley. On the left-hand side is your standard edition cover, and that one is supplied by Sal Buscema. That one is available everywhere, while the direct market cover is only available at places like your local comic book store, cheapgraphicnovels.com, waltzcomicshop.com, bdcosmos.com, In-Stock Trades, Dying Breed Collectors, Comics Bugle, Reed's Comics, and places like that. Now, one thing I do want to note is that the spines are different, which they have been doing between the direct market and book market. But that spine from the standard edition is also different from the original printing. As a matter of fact, let's get that out here. So here is the original printing, and here is the new printing. They're using the exact same cover from our pal Sal here for the standard edition, but now we have a direct market. I don't think we had a direct market when this came out. But you can see that the spine is different from the spine of the new printing too. They're just using the same picture from Sal Buscema. And the Marvel Omnibus logo up here, Marvel Omnibus logo, Spider-Man Clone Saga 2, then of course the pictures. In the back are all the covers of the books collected in here. Plus it's got a few extra things in there too. Retail price of the original printing, $125. The new printing is $150. This right here tells you what's exactly collected in there. Maximum clonage is collected in here. Now I do want to go ahead and actually let's do this. Wanted to see the sizes, wanted to compare the thickness of the books. Looks like the new printing actually looks just a little bit thicker. We'll do an internal comparison in a bit, like comparing the way that it lays over, and of course the paper stock. But first let's look underneath the dust jacket, because I can tell you right now it's completely different. We have this image in the new printing by John Romita Jr., and it is one of those images that spreads throughout the entire book. So that's what the art on board looks like in the new printing. The original printing, pretty much a copy and paste of what was on the dust jacket, with the exception of what's in the back here. So that's what's in the original printing. Now, of course, let's take a closer look at the flaps here. Who will wear the webs, and then all the bio and the creators here. All right, before we do a comparison internally, we are going to be talking about this book right here. So, in case you haven't read Volume 1, if you want to go into this completely blind, I am going to be talking about some minor spoilers, pretty much the setup for the book, what's happening here, the status quo, not going in depth as to how things happen or who these characters are behind the mask, because there's some big revelations in here. But just in case you haven't read Volume 1, there's one particular thing that happened in Volume 1 that I have to talk about here, and that is the particular death of a character. And I don't want to spoil that for anybody, so keep that in mind. If you don't care about spoilers, well, let's just keep going. I'll let you know when I'm about to talk about spoilers, though. All right. Let's go ahead and get this big, thick book open. Here's your end sheets and your title page, Spider-Man Clone Saga Volume 2. And the credits of all of the creators behind this: J.M. DeMatteis, Howard Mackey, Tom DeFalco, Todd DeZago, David Michelinie, Evan Skolnick, Tom Lyle, Mark Bagley, Tom Lyle, Sal Buscema, Dave Hoover, Patch Searcher, and Roger Robinson, Liam Sharps, Pat O'Leaf, and Joseph Rubinstein, Larry Maltstead, Sam De La Rosa, Bill Sienkiewicz, Bob Sharon, Kevin Tinsley, Clem Robbins, Jim Novak. So many creators behind this book. Here is a little bit of what happened previously, kind of reintroducing you to these characters. Now, what is collected in here, let's talk about that first. We have the Amazing Spider-Man 402 to 406 and the Super Special. Spider-Man 59 through 63, that's the Adjectiveless Spider-Man. And the Super Special. The Venom Super Special, the New Warrior 61 through 66. Web of Spider-Man 126 to 129 and the Super Special. And Spectacular Spider-Man 225 to 229 plus the Super Special. And Spider-Man the Jackal Files, Spider-Man the Maximum Clonage Alpha and Omega, and Spider-Man Unlimited number 10, Spider-Man Team Up number 1, that's the one with the X-Men, Spider-Man The Lost Years 1 through 3, and Spider-Man The Parker Years. The book has 1,288 pages. Now, moving forward, I am going to be talking about some spoilers, especially what happened in the first volume, so keep that in mind. I'd hate to spoil anything big for anybody, so just in case, moving forward. Alright, so what's happened previously? Previously, we've had the return of the original clone, the one that was supposed to have died in the original Clone Saga, when the Jackal created, not just a clone, I guess that would work, a clone of Peter Parker, but also a clone of Gwen Stacy. And at the end of that big battle, Peter Parker is left to wonder, is he the clone or is he the original Peter Parker? And he decides to throw away the results of a test, and he realizes that he is the one and only Peter Parker Spider-Man. Now, in the original Clone Saga, like I said, the clone of Spider-Man died. But as it is revealed in the first Clone Omnibus, that clone did not die. As a matter of fact, he went on to live his own life for a while. And he chose the name Ben Reilly. Aunt May got sick. He came back to be with Aunt May and realized how much of a help he can be to Peter Parker and Mary Jane, who's actually moving on to the next part of their lives. So he adopted a costume, and the media dubbed him the Scarlet Spider, and that's the way the costume looks. Now, we're also introduced to several other characters, including the Judas Traveler, who I'll talk a little bit about here in a second. But one of the biggest characters that was introduced was this character named Kane. And Kane was going around murdering people. He actually murdered a couple of Spider-Man villains. Go back to the first volume to find out who they were. And then Ben is actually starting to have a life of his own here back in New York. He befriends this neighbor of his, Gabrielle Greer, and they start having feelings for each other. Now, Kane that was introduced, not only did he kill villains, but apparently he had killed a police officer back in Salt Lake City, whose name was Louise Kennedy. And Jacob Raven, her partner, wants revenge for that, has been looking for this man, because you see, Kane doesn't just kill people, he leaves the mark of Kane on people, on their faces. So in the previous volume, what ended up happening is that DNA came back, and he was trying to frame Ben Reilly, but as it turns out, Ben Reilly is Peter Parker's clone. Maybe. Or maybe he's the original. One way for you to find out. But when he was trying to frame Ben Reilly, he framed Peter Parker. So Peter Parker gets thrown in jail for the murder of Louise Kennedy, and Ben Reilly does the right thing. He realizes that Peter Parker has a life. He's married, and Mary Jane finds out that she's pregnant. This is a big life-changing event, and Ben Reilly decides to make the ultimate sacrifice and go to jail and face the trial while Peter Parker goes out and swings as the Scarlet Spider. The big death I wanted to talk about, though, is the impact of Aunt May. Aunt May died in the Clone Saga Omnibus Volume 1, and it's left an impact on not just Peter and MJ, but also Ben Reilly, who, that is his aunt, even though he considers himself a clone. This is Officer Raven right here, Detective Raven, who's also been left with the mark, and that's why he starts to question, maybe he's got the wrong man in there. But that's where this starts off. Peter Parker's running around trying to clear the name of Ben Reilly, who is posing as Peter Parker in prison. And he gets approached by the Judas Traveler, who is showing all kinds of power, including time travel, including the ability to show him his aunt's soul. It gets really weird how much they were souping up this character. We get the introduction of the new Green Goblin. Who is he? Is he a friend? Is he a foe? Is he the return of a dead friend? Is he going to ally himself with Peter Parker or Ben Reilly? Well, this is the beginning of it. Now, Kane makes his move here, and again, this is all part of the trial of Peter Parker. Everybody thinks it's Peter Parker, but as it turns out, it's not really him. It's Ben Reilly in there. Even the villains have their own trial against him. And Stunner wants revenge for what happened to her significant other in the first volume. So she's teaming up with Detective Raven. The Jackal comes back, and the Jackal comes back in a weird way. The Jackal comes back like claiming that he is the father of Ben Reilly and Peter Parker, and he's got more secrets. And one of the biggest things that happens in this volume is this whole added confusion as to who is the real Peter Parker, because you get mixed answers. Like, Peter Parker snaps at Ben Reilly because at one point Ben Reilly could be the real Peter Parker and Peter Parker's the clone. Meanwhile, you start feeling kind of bad for MJ. Actually, you do feel bad for Mary Jane because, you know, she comes from an abusive background, like with her whole family. She's cut ties with her family. And you start feeling really sorry for her because all she does is kind of stay by Peter. He's abandoned her before. At the beginning of this, he abandons her again. And she is with his child, and it just feels really weird for him to keep coming back. But such, I guess, is the character of Mary Jane. Very strong woman. That's why I'm always about the marriage. In between all this madness, we get a little backup story that's supposed to take place in between a couple of pages of the right before Peter Parker goes to jail, and that is the Planet of the Symbiote. So, yes, get ready for a lot of symbiote action through here. That's what all of those specials were, including the Venom special. And it's not just Venom, it's Carnage. You get the Jackal Files in here. And the Jackal Files, what they do is they kind of give you a background exactly as to who these characters are supposed to be in the proper reading order. Now, the one thing I will say that is not in the best of the reading order, but I completely understand why they did it, and that is the New Warriors. And I'll explain why here in a little bit. But the big thing that happens in the Jackal Files is the introduction of a new character named Spider-Side. Spider-Side is what kind of heads the Maximum Clonage. And get ready for a lot of clones. So the New Warriors get involved because they wanted to bump the sales up of the New Warriors. So they made it into a Spider-Man title by having the Scarlet Spider join the team. So in here you're going to see some New Warriors that you're probably familiar with if you've read the original Omnibus. This will do some double dipping with the third Omnibus. This isn't Fabian Niciez's team. It's Evan Skolnick's team. And then we kick off Maximum Clonage in the tradition of... the X-Men, Age of Apocalypse, Alpha and Omega, comes Maximum Clonage. But then again, we also had like the Crossing, right, and the Time Slip with chromium covers, crystal clear covers. And this complicates things a lot by claiming there's other clones out there. But by the end of this omnibus, you will finally get the answer as to who the real Spider-Man is, who the real Peter Parker is. And that will determine who will leave and who will don the webbing, who will wear the outfit. You get these backup stories here from the super specials that feature pretty much Ben Reilly against a foe of Peter Parker, mainly the Lizard and a couple of other characters here. Backup story by Derek Robertson. There's a couple of really good stories in here that I completely forgot about because, you know, you get caught in the middle of this madness of this whole event. But there's some really powerful moments that happen through here. You know, the realization that maybe your life has been a lie and what are you going to do with it? Mary Jane fighting this whole thing, like, how I'm pregnant, but is the radioactive spider bite going to affect my child that is growing within me? Like, real questions like that if you take a step back and ask yourself, you know, this isn't just a comic book about a bunch of clones coming together and beating the crap out of each other, taking down villains. There's a lot of real things happening within these pages. And I think that's what a lot of people really enjoyed about the Clone Saga, is that there's some beauty to it. This is also during the... when the Vulture absorbs Spider-Man's life force, it made him young again. Of course, that was temporary. We're doing a lot of different things. We do get a new Dr. Octopus through here. What is her name? Carolyn Trainer. She shows up through here. And these are the issues I was talking about of the New Warriors. Because I feel like Scarlet Spider does feature in them, but they didn't want to disturb the Maximum Clonage and the Exile storyline. So they kind of put them together as one storyline, which still works. But from time to time, you might be reading something that was supposed to take place a couple of months back. It's really hard to do a reading order of all these books that were coming out at the same time when you didn't have like a part 1, part 2, and part 3 to follow. This is Caroline right here. Carolyn Trainer, the new Dr. Octopus. Oh, Angel Medina, man, killing it. Look at those angles. Love it. Some good art in here too. Tom Lyle, Ken Lashley, Derek Robertson, Mark Bagley, Sal Buscema, Klaus Janson doing a lot of the inks. So as I said, by the end of this, you will have a new Spider-Man. And you can find out who that is by reading the next... Well, you find out at the end of this, but you can read the next book, the Ben Reilly Volume 1, which I've done an overview of. This is actually the last book I'm doing an overview of as far as the reprints of Spider-Man Clone Saga. Towards the end is where you get the Lost Years. And what the Lost Years do is they focus on Ben Reilly and what he'd been up to since he left, right? And pretended to fake his own death. And Kane also gets involved in this particular story. It's actually a really good miniseries. And the mistake they made with the original epics, not the new epics and this omnibus, is they put it at the very beginning, and it kind of gives away a lot of the twists and turns. I'm so glad they kept it in the back here, where it belongs, where it's supposed to be read. The Parker Years is the final Spider-Man adventure, or Spider-Man saying goodbye to... how do I word this? It's the person that decided, I'm not going to be Spider-Man anymore, but he still has all the memories of Spider-Man. So it's like going through it one more time together with the character and saying goodbye to the character. And here are the variant covers. I've always been a big fan of that one by Petty, I think. Yeah. I don't know whatever happened to that guy. I really liked his artwork. So you do have extras in the back. That had a McFarlane flair to it. And then, of course... not a lot of variant covers back then. This is the Lost Years trade paperback by J.M. DeMatteis. Terry Kavanagh writing some of the stories in here. And then this Web Warriors Marvel 92 variant by Mark Bagley, Andrew Hennessy, and Rachel Rosenberg. Now let's look at the binding. 1,288 pages. This new printing comes from the iMac printer. So let's look at some of these lighter pages that may have... There we go. Pages like this. You can see some of the word bubbles bleeding through from the opposite page. And I'll do a comparison here to the original printing. But honestly, the paper stock seems to be thicker than usual for the iMac printer. Let me see. Yeah, this is perfect. So this is the way that it lays over towards the very beginning, so you do get some gutter loss. And again, I'll do a comparison of this with the original printing, just to kind of give you an idea of a little bit of the gutter loss there. But yes, let's compare it to the original printing over here. So this original printing was printed at the Leo Paper Company, and the new printing at the iMac printer. A little darker color there on the end sheets. Yeah, colors look about the same there. And honestly, the colors look about the same over here. Maybe just a little bit lighter. And the paper stock feels about the same, honestly. Maybe just a little bit thinner in the new paper. So let's actually get to that one page we were looking at. Yeah, right here. Where you can see some of the word bubbles coming through from the opposite side. Honestly, the original printing has a little bit more bleed through than the new printing. Now, let's look at the way they lay over with the spread page. So, here's the gutter loss. Actually, there's more gutter loss in the original printing than there is in the new printing. Now, let's look at something in the middle here. So, and now it's looking about the same type of gutter loss on both. To kind of give you an idea of what the eye looks like in the original printing right here. So, honestly, the eye looks about the same. Now let's look somewhere in the very back. And you have actually less gutter loss in the original printing than you do in the new printing. If you hold it down, you can see the spider symbol on his chest over here. You still have to hold it down a little bit. There is gutter loss in both the new printing and the original printing. And I wanted to come back to the back so you can see some of these lighter colors or just white and see some of the art bleed through. See it a little more prominent over here than over here in the new printing. But that's it. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcon at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you are planning on picking this up, if you already have the original printing, if you're going to stick to the Epic collections, and if you think the Epic collections are going to be mapped differently. Or if you already have the original Clone Saga and Ben Riley Saga Epics. I think that's what the Epic Saga, I think is what it was called. It all gets a little bit confusing, but that's why we have reading orders. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Check us out on Patreon and Spreadshop. Amazing ways to support the channel. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.